I'm SoFreshNSoClean and welcome to my Syndra guide for patch 7.16 and onward. I am a Syndra main with several hundred Syndra games played this ranked season and stay around high diamond elo, so without further ado. Syndra was just hit with a nerf in patch 7.16. 10% ability power scaling was removed from her Q and moved to her E instead. But this is not much of a nerf at all because they targeted her AP scaling rather than base damage. So at any stage in the game, it's only going to be a couple points of damage taken off of her Q. It's not much of a nerf at all. Syndra is a medium ranged mage whose strengths are zone control, bursting, and the potential to kite your enemies. However, Syndra is a very hard champion to master and quite difficult to pick up if you're a newbie. Her weaknesses are that she's slow, she's vulnerable in melee range, and all of her spells are skill shots, which take a while to get used to. The stun has a long cooldown, it's a skill shot, and you're extremely vulnerable when you miss it. This is my typical rune page on Syndra and most of my AP mid lane champions. I've got magic penetration marks, scaling health seals, 6 scaling cooldown reduction glyphs, and 3 magic resist glyphs, and 3 ability power quintessences. This is pretty standard, and the 6 scaling cooldown reduction glyphs allow me to get near 10% cooldown reduction as the game goes on, and the 3 magic resist glyphs can be swapped out for scaling magic resist, but the 3 flat give it to you right away rather than having to wait for magic resist as you level up. And the scaling health seals are extremely good because 200 plus health is very good as the game goes on. I also like to swap out my scaling health seals for armor seals when facing AD champions. Here's my mastery page. It looks pretty similar to most AP mid lane champions, but there are some differences. Instead of running Feast, I like to run Fresh Blood because it's a 6-second cooldown, and getting it off as much as you can will add up a lot of damage as the laning phase goes on and trading happens. And I like to take Double-Edged Sword instead of Battle Trance, 2 points in Meditate, and 3 in Executioner. I like to get a little bit of here and there, and then the rest is self-explanatory. The summoner spells I use are Flash Ghost or Flash Ignite. Typically I will take Flash Ghost, but if I'm against enemy assassins that I need to shut down like Echo, Zed, or Fizz, I'll take Flash Ignite. The skill order for your basic abilities is going to be Q, W, E. Q because it is your main damage spell, and at max rank the sphere duration gets increased from 6 to 8 seconds. W second because when you max it out it's going to be doing 20% bonus true damage, and its cooldown is lower than E and does more damage. So we're going to be maxing E last. I start the majority of my games with a Doran's Ring and 2 potions, followed by the Morellonomicon as my first item, getting Lost Chapter as fast as possible. I then follow this with Luden's Echo, Sorcerer's Shoes, whichever I can afford first, followed by Haunting Guise into Liandry's, or Void Staff before completing Liandry's depending on the enemy team's itemization. Then after that, I'll probably get a Zhonya's or Banshee's Veil, or a Rabadon's Death Cap. Keep in mind when versing AD champions mid like Zed, Talon, or Yasuo, getting Zhonya's Hourglass second after Morellonomicon would be a good idea. I've rebound the shift right click command from an attack move command to a move command. This allows me to hold shift and kite back at the same time, allowing me to smart cast without stopping and auto attacking. When laning, try to harass your opponent as much as possible without running out of mana or missing too many skills. The best way to do this is to pay attention to your own minions' health and then hit the enemy when they go to last hit. As with most mid laners, the biggest tip is to balance last hitting, harassing, and map awareness. There needs to be a good harmony between these 3 things. The best way to stun your enemies is to stun them with a ball that's already created and on the field. This will get an extra ball towards your ultimate and allow you to get a guaranteed Q-W ult combo. Syndra is all about landing your skill shots and anticipating enemy movement. Here I use a ball that's already created, anticipating Ahri's movement, stunning her and getting a kill. After casting your ultimate, your balls will remain on the field for a short duration. Watch this clip. I move up to shove my balls as far as possible into the enemy team, getting a 3-man stun. When you find yourself in close 1v1 situations, you can cast ult and then E for a guaranteed stun. Here are some combos for Syndra's stun in a unique interaction. QE, WE, and lastly EQ. EQ combo is misleading because it does not match the visual on screen. You're able to cast Scatter the Weak and then Dark Sphere and still end up with a stun. This can be explained. Syndra's E, while a shove, is technically not a single shove. It is a series of waves, and if you catch your Q or W at the right time, you can get a shove out of it. Look at this visual. If you cast W or Q on the right side of this white line and inside the cone, you will get a shove, but timing is key since this happens in under a second. I must note, however, you do get a couple millimeters of wiggle room outside of the cone. As with all skill shots in League, the indicators aren't entirely accurate. I've tried my best to apply this in a video. This first ball gets shoved because it was already on the field, being on the outside of the white line. The second ball gets shoved because I casted it on the outside of the white line. Same with this third and fourth ball. I'll replay these in slow motion so you can see what I mean. This white line is not indicative of the waves, rather it is an indicator of the window of opportunity you have to get a shove. Notice how close these balls are to Syndra when they fail to get shoved. The sweet spot is from the middle onward on the bar that is at the end of the skill shot indicator. This ball gets launched because it is already on the field on the outside of the white line. This ball gets launched because it is on the outside of the white line and is casted before it can be passed over. This ball gets launched because it is casted on the edge of the white line before it can be passed over. Illuminated, you can see a little shade of purple indicating the Q cast, so it gets launched. This last ball fails to get launched because it is casted too close to Syndra and is passed over by the white line before it is casted. You're probably wondering, when does this become useful? Perhaps the best application is when you are getting hit by a melee enemy and need to immediately shove them out of range and get a stun. The best way to do this is to cast E, Q with your mouse in the same spot for both of those casts. You're probably going to stay in place for a fraction of a second while you cast both spells at the same time, but it's worth it because if done correctly you will get a stun and be able to kite them or run away. This is particularly useful against high mobility enemies where a simple QE won't cut it, because if they are close to you they can just walk around the combo, and EQ is instant and undodgeable if done correctly. Scatter the Weak is a displacement ability that lasts for under a second, which means the enemies cannot use spells while they are being shoved back. Post laning phase, you want to shove your lane as hard as possible and be available to your team as skirmishes over objectives happen. When you are running to a fight, be sure to cast Q so you have a W ready to go by the time you get there. Syndra's W, although a bit lackluster during the laning phase because of its low damage and high mana cost, gets stronger as the game goes on. Here I'm able to snipe Soraka because the W range is longer than Q's. The biggest tip I can give on Syndra is your positioning. Syndra is a glass cannon who is constantly always on the edge of death. As quoted by Overlord Forte, there is a razor line between life and death for Syndra you must work in, and how you do so determines your performance. The ability to do this lies mostly in experience. You can watch all the tips and gameplay you want, but you have to get a feel for it. Decision making and awareness come into play here. For example, if you manage to stun the enemy carry in a team fight, do you walk up to combo him and overextend yourself? Or do you sit back and wait for a clear shot? Knowing the enemy champions and knowing your teammates' champions and how they're going to probably interact with each other in a team fight and being aware of what's going on will ensure you don't kill yourself. I'm SoFreshNSoClean, and that was my Syndra guide. That is practically everything I know about Syndra, and I tried my best to make a video about it. If you enjoyed this guide, let me know. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and be sure to follow me on Twitch. I live stream there, and I will be making more League of Legends content in the future. Thanks for watching.